Are we live? Good evening. Welcome to the District 225 Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, would you please read the roll?
Mr. Dowdy.
Here.
Mr. Glowacki.
Present.
Ms. Mullenbeck. Here. Mr. O'Hara.
Here.
Ms. Segwin. Here. Mr. Schein.
Present.
Dr. Steinberg.
Here.
7 members present.
Item 2 on our agenda is a motion for approval of our agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Good evening, everyone, and we welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. We're well into our summer now. This evening, we do have a number of topics. We'll have our typical agenda, which includes community comment, board and superintendent reports, and consent. Then we will move into closed session. And after closed session, we will come back out. We have 3 items then. 1 concerns disciplinary action. 2nd are board directives, and 3rd concern memorandums with our teachers of agreement, memorandums of agreement. We thank you all for being here this evening. Move to item 3 on our agenda, which, yes, can you hear me now? There you go. All right. Thank you for the heads up. With the recognition of community visitors right now, this is a up to 30-minute period of our meeting. We always value the input from our constituents and anyone else here. We ask that you limit your comments to no more than 2 minutes and that you respect that. We may extend the period slightly past 30 minutes. And I do have a list of folks who would like to address us this evening, which I appreciate. Please do give us your name and address, and it does help us with follow-up. You do not have to. And also let us know your connection to the district. Again, that helps us with follow-up. You don't have to, but it does help us. We remind people of a number of items when they speak with us. The first is the board does not respond at this point to what you say. We are listening extremely carefully. Second, please keep in mind that we maintain confidentiality and privacy regarding employees and students. Third, please note that the board does not control the topics raised or the substance of public comment. Fourth, we remind speakers that they should direct their comments to the board and that the comments should apply to district business. This is not an open political forum. It's about district business. Fifth, we remind speakers that their comments are not automatically protected by any immunity or legal privilege. And we ask everyone finally to maintain civility and respect. As we've said at a number of the last number of meetings, we understand there's a lot of pain and a wide range of emotion associated with the Glenbrook South yearbook situation. We understand that there are disagreements, but we ask you please that you respect others as they speak, and please try to speak respectfully, directing your comments to the board. If we do this, if we maintain respect, we can better understand what is being shared. We can do our best as a district, and we can learn from each other. We can heal, we can work together and improve our schools and our community. As always, we should keep our students at the center of all we do and model the civility that we expect. With that, I will start with the first speaker on the list, and it is Michael DeCoco, sir. Good evening.
Hi. So, Michael DeCoco, my address is 3125 Eastern Road in Northbrook. Parent of 2 students. First and foremost, my son on. That's okay.
Pause the timer.
You can reset the time, sir.
Sounds good.
And so he'll restore.
Can you hear
your time
now?
in just 1 second. Yes, he'll restore
Okay.
your time in a
Thank
second.
you.
I want to make sure that that's fair to you. Okay, you're on.
My name is Michael DeCoco. My address is 3125 Keystone Road. I'm a parent of 2 Glenbrook North students. First and foremost, I want to thank the board for taking the time and the expense to conduct a thorough investigation here and share your findings with us. While I think we probably could still argue for more transparency, I think that the investigation has proven to be fairly transparent, and I appreciate that. I think, as you mentioned, we need to keep the students first and foremost here. regardless of if they are Jewish, if they are Muslim, if they are Christian, regardless of what it is. The bottom line of the situation from the findings of the investigation is that the teacher failed. Barberfield is a danger, unprofessional, and lacks the ethics to be a faculty member of a nationally recognized district like District 225. She abdicated her responsibilities and showed a lack of interest in promoting and teaching journalistic integrity and ethics as she's supposed to do. She should not be receiving our taxpayer dollars. The safety and the security of students should be a priority, and this teacher has failed. She has failed our students. She has failed the district. Please do not take the same path as your Ivy League colleagues and give nebulous and weak suspensions or relief of duties. Do what you expect of our students and take accountability, take decisive action, and protect our students. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next is David Tellisman. Did I say that right?
David Tellisman. My address is 4120 Applewood Lane in Northbrook, and I have an older son who is a student at GBN. I appreciate that the board has responded the way it has so far. This whole situation has been one big mess that has further divided an already intense division between Palestinian and Israeli sympathizing groups. We're here because of a colossal lack of oversight that runs all the way up the chain, but the focus is on yearbook advisor Brenda Field for not only abdicating her responsibilities as educator and, quite frankly, adult, but for pointing the finger at her Jewish students. There are 6 instances in the 17-page yearbook investigation report where this occurs. On page 14, for example, it notes, she explained that when raising the issue with the editors-in-chief, they insisted on using the quote because 2 of the 3 editors-in-chief were Jewish and thought it was important to share the point of view. That they're Jewish is irrelevant, and more importantly, she's essentially passing the buck right to the Jewish students, which sure feels like classic anti-Semitism. And how is it anti-Semitism? Because blame is being sought and put on Jews for a greater problem. I think it's critical that people understand that for many of us, when we read this report, this pinched an all too familiar nerve. The whole of this report speaks for itself and speaks volumes of the negligence and arrogance of Brenda Field. She's not only unfit to be a yearbook advisor, but she's unfit to be a teacher, especially in our district. What you as a board do next is going to set a very positive or very negative precedent, one that will either permit or prevent something like this from happening again.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Liam, is it Matter? Matter? Did I get that right? Liam Madden. I'm so sorry. Is there a Liam Madden? Maybe, is there?
Is there people in the other room?
No, okay. Next up after that is Mariana Goodman. I'm so sorry, Marina.
Thank you. My name is Marina Goodman. I live in Tall Trees in Glenview, and my daughter will be a senior in GBS in August. And we are Jewish. And again, like the other gentleman, I want to thank for everything you've done so far. Your support has been incredible, and I'm hoping that will continue. I personally attended Lane Tech High School, which had 5,000 students. I've kept all 4 of my yearbooks. They're full of photos and articles about students and the activities they participate in. There are no political comments at all. There's only beautiful memories. And I bet you might have very similar yearbooks like that. When you look back and you look at them, you smile. In contrast, the GBS yearbook is 3 times the size of my Lane Tech yearbook and contains numerous comments, political opinions with false and biased information. The worst, of course, is the reason why we're here, the comment that glorified the brutal terrorist attack resulting in the worst massacre of Jews since the Holocaust. I have two requests, and I've asked them before. Request one, I urge, I beg you to stop including political articles in future GBS yearbooks. The yearbook should focus solely on students and their activities. Otherwise, you risk of the yearbook being weaponized again. And request two, we now all know that the teacher advisor was aware of this comment and did not stop it from being published. Why? Was it poor judgment? Or does she support the politics behind the hateful comment? Not only she should never, ever be involved in the yearbook again, but she is also unworthy of working in our incredible school district. All she had to do was tell the students, you can't publish this comment, as she also should have done with other biased opinions and articles in the yearbook. Instead, she knowingly did nothing.
Ms. Goodman, I'm going to have to, I'm sorry. To ask you to wrap it up.
I'm sorry. I just want to say, on 9/11, my husband was between the two towers when the first plane hit. He had to run for his life as parts of the plane were falling down. What would you do if a teacher allowed students to glorify the terrorists who violently murdered 3,000 of our citizens?
Thank you, Ms.
What
Goodman.
would you do? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next person is Hayden Levin.
Hello, board. My name is Hayden Levin, and I'm a prominent member of the GBM boys golf team and the Jewish community. And the IHSA state golf championships are to be held on Yom Kippur this year, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. And I know my father came to the last meeting and has mentioned this already. However, to date, I have not received a response from the board yet about anything regarding this. I understand there is more stress regarding more prominent issues that are overshadowing today's meeting. After email correspondence with the executive director of the IHSA, they've refused to change the date, and I find this as clear discrimination against Jewish students, forcing them to participate in either the holiest day of the year or in a high-level golf competition. I understand there are not many Jewish high schools with populations that we have at GBN and GBS in the rest of the state. However, I believe it is the district's responsibility to uphold the responsibilities set out by the IHSA as we are member schools. Most specifically, I find that their decision violates their own core beliefs found on their website. Specifically, IHSA believes in equality and fairness must always be safeguarded, and IHSA Board Policy Number 27, the IHSA does not discriminate on the basis of religion in any decision, and it is, and I quote, the responsibility of each member school to stress the cultural values involved in each of its interscholastic activities. By the district taking no action to change these clear violations of responsibility set out for them by the IHSA, it harms the integrity of both establishments. Also, as District 225 is partially federally funded, it is also the responsibility to uphold all federal laws, including the U.S. Code and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, in which under Title 42 and Title 6, respectively, it says no individual on the basis of religion shall be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination in a federally conducted education or activity. As a federal facility, the board is responsible for upholding Title 42 and Title 6, which thus far have been pushed aside as we are still sponsoring and supporting the IHSA and its decisions. By pushing these aside, the board is directly ignoring civil rights discrepancies and clearly violating federal law. A response to these violations is needed and change is imminent. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very.
Next up is Jeff Levin.
Jeff Levin, to GBN students. Silence is Indifference by Eli Wiesel, which is exactly what the administration is doing in reference to issues brought forth. May it be what might overshadow this discussion today, or the clear lack of administrative oversight when it comes to student athletes and religion. As golf is a well-participated event and growing, within Illinois having 499 participating schools and roughly 12,000 students per the 2022 records. Public schools have a responsibility to take a prompt and effective action when students face different treatment or harassment once notified per the U.S. Department of Justice. Has this been done? The National Federation of State High School Associations is the voice of high school athletics, in case you're unaware. Quote, Activities are a social force which teach values and achievements for physical, psychological, and emotional growth in the educational environment, end quote. Educators across the U.S. believe that participation in activities offers students lifetime learning experiences that cannot be duplicated in any other instructional setting. Is the district creating an educational lesson on what to do when religiously discriminated against? Administrators must take immediate corrective action in the event student athletes are discriminated against on the basis of race, ethnicity, religion, or cultural background. In 2021, Banksville's Barbados School District in Wisconsin said that knowledge plus deliberate indifference is a two-pronged legal standard. Therefore, school officials must ensure that as soon as there is knowledge of a problem, investigation is undertaken and corrective measures are implemented. To the point of all this, in the pure one-way discussion, is a state series on Yom Kippur. It's the same as playing on Easter, the most important day of the Christian calendar. Moving the series would be more of an important lesson for kids in acceptance and respect, which is currently only done for Easter, as stated in the IHSA scheduling handbook. Per the IHSA, the association would not be able to provide participation opportunities to over 400,000 high school students without the support of their corporate partners. However, by excluding the ability for specific religion to participate goes against what IHSA and corporate partners state and strive for. From the board's opening statement, which you mentioned, you take addresses on the sign-up sheet and ask for a follow-up so that you can follow up. To date, from the last board meeting, there has been no follow-up from the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. Speaker 7 is Steve Blonder. Mr. Blonder.
Good evening. My name is Steve Blonder. I'm the parent of a Glenbrook North graduate and a Maple recent graduate. The report that Mr. Petarka gave at the meeting 2 weeks ago was a damning indictment of the education in this district. It pointed out abject failures by teachers. It pointed out or alluded to abject failures by instructional supervisors. There's been no discussion of that at all. And the worst is, there's been no acceptance of responsibility at the top from the administrators for what the pain that's been caused in this district to students, whether it's Jasmine, who's been targeted, whether it's Jewish students who were called out specifically as Jewish students, the only people who were called out by religion, which is basically doubling down on the anti-Semitism that's happening in this district. The report is just another example of it by using that language. And I understand from reading the report, it's purportedly quoting the teacher, Ms. Field, who did that. But by not demarking it, the report itself is doubling down on the issue. The report makes it self-evident that this district has failed its students. The teacher is yet to assume responsibility. She's just blamed the students, or I'm sorry, the Jewish students whose fault it is. The instructional supervisors clearly were not supervising. The report said there was no syllabus for the class. How do you have a class that meets in multiple sessions that there's no syllabus for? Where's the accountability? Where's the plan for how to address that? That's a systemic failure. Whoever gave out Jasmine's school email address should be sanctioned by this district. By doing that, they didn't put the students' needs first. By directing people to a sophomore student, it was inappropriate. The bottom line is blame is falling on 3 seniors and on a teacher. We lead by example. The example being set is we don't take responsibility and we just blame someone else. That's the lesson we're giving our students, but that's not the lesson that we should be giving.
Thank you, Mr. Blonder. I think it's Dorothy Weinberg. Did I get that right?
I live in Glenview. I'm a resident for 52 years. Both my children went to Glenbrook South and got a wonderful education. Unfortunately, regarding the yearbook, as other people have stated, some of the editors-in-chief thought everything was okay in there, and they're Jewish. Those students do not speak for the Jewish people, just like any other topic. There's every person, whether they're Christian, Jewish, Islam, Indian, whatever they are, you can't categorize a religion or an ethnic group. So by saying, well, it was okay with these two Jewish kids, that doesn't make it okay. And the only other thing that I'm going to say is this. This person who was the staff supervisor, the staff yearbook advisor, has been there for 23 years. And I remember in the report that the lawyer gave, so 23 years ago, some students who were on the yearbook said, we like this person because she's a silent advisor. No advisor should be silent. The word advisor means you're advising somebody. You're teaching students who are not fully adults. So you're there to advise them. That's all I have to say, and I hope you'll take this into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Weinberg. Our next speaker is Lisa Ackerman.
Hi, Lisa Ackerman, 2420 Bryan Drive, Northbrook. I am a GBN alum, a parent to two current District 225 students, a member of the Jewish community, and an attorney who represents organizations in matters involving harassment and discrimination. On a personal level, I'm sickened by what occurred and by the failure of this administration to take prompt corrective action. Based upon my professional expertise, I give this administration a big F. I cannot impress upon you enough the impact that this incident and the snowball effect resulting from it has on the fabric of our society. For purposes of my 2-minute allotment, I'm going to offer you just one example. According to the report, Brenda Fields followed the lead of the student editors because 2 of them were Jewish. The media has now run with this message. So now we don't have 2 yearbook editors, but we have 2 Jews responsible for publishing out of context an anti-Semitic and anti-Zionist statement. My allotted 2 minutes does not allow me enough time to unpack all of the implications contained in this one example, but I trust that you got the point that this is just further example of anti-Semitism. I ask you, who is the responsible adult in the classroom? By her own admission, it was not Brenda Fields. She deferred to the Jewish students. She had no curriculum, no standards for grades, provided no leadership, and has not accepted any responsibility. Who is the responsible adult in the GBS and district administration? It was not Barb, according to her signature block on her emails, and it is certainly not Charles Johns. Under their leadership, a teacher was running to her own devices with no organizational chart delineating to whom a teacher reported, nobody ensuring that classes had a curriculum and grading standards established, and nobody reviewing student-issued publications. In addition to the fact that we would not have gotten to this place to begin with had Barb and Charles Johns been doing their jobs, when the yearbook incident was called to their attention, they showed complete indifference.
Ms. Ackerman, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to conclude.
I'm sorry. Barb directed the parents' complaints to the yearbook students, and they failed to immediately confiscate and stop distribution of the yearbooks.
Thank you, Ms. Ackerman.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jill Hartzman.
Once again, thank you everybody for being here. Here we are again. I'm a GBS graduate and the parent of a GBS student. I'm a Jewish parent and a community member, and I need to feel safe sending my child to school. A GBS teacher, the yearbook advisor, allowed the yearbook to celebrate the planned torture, massacre, murder, and destruction of Israel and the Jewish people. As a teacher, Ms. Field has a responsibility to protect all students. Throughout the situation, race and religion was not mentioned until Miss Field said that she thought publishing the quote was okay because 2 of the 3 yearbook editors were Jewish. Why did this matter? Why was it necessary to single out 2 students based on religion? She didn't mention the race and religion of the 3rd editor or the student that authored the hateful words, only the Jewish students. Regardless of race or religion, they're still students working under adult supervision. Our students were failed. Our community was failed, and it resulted in pain and a fallout to our entire district. Brenda Field failed in her responsibility to students, to parents, to community, and the district. Through this investigation, we also learned of cracks in the infrastructure. We saw insensitivities and ignorance. We've also now learned that our children are educated in an environment where there is no curriculum or syllabus. The department heads and administration do not accept the responsibility. As I said, blaming the Jewish students should never be acceptable. In the face of this crisis, even our administration did not rush to correct the problem. On a further note, the relationship with Justin's, our trusted yearbook partner, needs to be reevaluated. Politics have no place in a yearbook, and while this should have been stopped at the school level, it should never even have been introduced or allowed by the publisher that we chose.
Thank you, Ms. Hartzman. I'm going to have to ask you to.
Okay, I just.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We are going on 3 months and we are still waiting to hear consequences. I appreciate your service and your investigation, but now we need to hear outcome and consequences. Thank you.
Lisa Kane is our next speaker.
Hello, my name is Lisa Kane. I am a parent of a Glenbrook South student. I want to begin by thanking the board and the administration for taking the first step in dealing with the yearbook situation. I believe that the plan to replace the yearbooks or provide a sticker at the school's expense is a well thought out and a good beginning step. But I would encourage the board and the school to think about next steps. I am a former English teacher and a current high school counselor, so everything I do comes through the lens of being an educator. And so I took a careful look through our policies and also the collective bargaining agreement. And what I noticed is I didn't see any language specifically about coaching. So within our agreement, our contract that I helped negotiate, we have specific language in there that talks about lesson plans and unit plans and informal, non-evaluative observations that happen in classrooms, minimums for those and maximums for those that should happen. This is really helpful experience. That coaching that teachers and educators receive is how we grow in the profession and make sure that we're adhering to best practices. It's also how we can make sure we don't have some of these situations. I would really encourage the board as we think about our school and putting structures in place that we really look at a solid coaching model. And if the school already has it in place, that's part of the collective bargaining agreement and put into writing. I would also encourage the school to think about education. I strongly encourage the school to put forward some kind of staff training and PD so that staff members are aware of what discrimination and prejudice looks like. They can't stop it if they don't know what it is when they see it. In my school, I was part of an equity with integrity cohort for 2 years. It taught us to look at biases and be ambassadors, and I would encourage the school to look for that program as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kane. Our next speaker is Amy Abrams.
Thank you. For the folks at NBC, I'm not interested in being on television or quoted. Thank you. First, allow me to thank the board for your time and your service for this administration. I am the parent of a graduated senior, and I have an incoming senior this year. I think the thing that's concerned me the most has been the commentary about the context of the quote, that it's been taken out of context. So let's review the quote. The first day I woke up and saw what Palestine did, I was happy because they are finally defending themselves. So let's talk about that context. I was happy because my dad baked cookies this morning. I was happy that Hamas invested the billions of dollars they've been given into infrastructure for the Palestinian people. I was happy that Hamas killed Jews. I don't think the context is unclear. As a matter of fact, I think it's pretty darn clear. And it feels to me that District 225 has now spent thousands and thousands of dollars on legal fees for a law firm to come back and offer up an excuse that it really didn't happen the way it did. I think we're still on the hook here. I spent the last month thinking that if my daughter ended up in a classroom with Miss Field, I would ask that she be moved. But it also concerns me if my daughter were to end up in a class with a student making the quote. District 225, through the guise of the legal world, has taught this young woman that we can weave around her directness and pretend it didn't happen as she said. She's been taught not to be responsible for her actions. I don't want somebody who is not being taught responsibility to be in a partner quiz with my child. I don't want them to have a group project with my child. And I certainly don't want somebody who has clearly been quoted as anti-Semitic having anything to do with my child. I want to build a bridge to peace, but I think it's been very difficult with the way this has been laid out. I appreciate your service, and I hope you'll take all these comments into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abrams. Our next speaker is Howard Norwood, maybe? Does that sound about right?
Henry Norwood. It was close.
All right, well, my handwriting's awful, so I have no standing.
Mine
ones.
too.
Thank
My
you.
name is Henry Norwood. I'm a resident here, 1207 Wagner Road. We've got 3 kids that have been through Glenbrook South, and we're very proud to have had them go through Glenbrook South. They're better kids for having spent the time at the school. We chose very carefully in terms of the district, making sure that we landed in 225. I laud you guys for the effort that you've put forward and the community that you've created. The diversity here is fantastic. We certainly welcome the different views that come through the community, good or bad. We want to be able to hear other people's views and experiences and understand their positions. It's how I think everybody as a whole becomes a little bit better, perhaps. My reason for being here today is simply to state we have a child that went through the yearbook process, spent 3 years with Brenda Field. During those 3 years, we saw our daughter develop as a result of the influence of Brenda Field. Contrary to the report, I can tell you that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she was here at GBS working hand in hand with Brenda Field on a regular basis, sometimes until 10 p.m. at night, but every one of those days, at least from 4 to 7. Mrs. Field is hands-on. She spends a lot of time with the students. That didn't come through in the report. I think that's unfortunate, but I also understand it. They didn't have the direct experience working with the teachers. I just think the community should know you've got a teacher that is very beloved inside of this community with 20 years of experience. This is an unfortunate situation, and I agree that steps need to be taken to make sure this never happens again. But I don't think her service necessarily should be put at risk. The problem here and the issues created are not necessarily entirely her responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norwood. Our next speaker is Marina Braun.
Good evening. My name is Marina Braun. I'm a resident of Glenview and the parent of an incoming freshman to GBS, as well as 3 younger children. I respect the board and administration and thank you for your thorough investigation. I can also appreciate how challenging this time has been for all of you professionally and personally. That being said, a key component has been missing throughout your response: compassion. Caring about the people involved and the impact on them. It's something that this board brought up in your own commentary at the May 28th meeting. The response has lacked compassion, and it's deeply troubling. Leaders set the tone for their teams. Administration sets the tone for their school, for GBS. Mistakes happen. That's unavoidable. It's a natural part of living and learning. It's how we grow and become better. The investigation has revealed opportunities for improvement, and I trust that those opportunities will be implemented. But just as we parents have accountability for our children in their successes and in their mistakes, so too leaders have accountabilities over the successes and mistakes of their teams. I have not seen any ownership or accountability over this incident from school leadership, namely the principal, since the start of this saga. Deflection, avoidance, shifting blame, and silence. That's what I've seen. The impression it gives is that the administration doesn't care, that they'd prefer it would just all go away. The principal is the connection to the families, not the board. In a good functioning district, the families shouldn't have to elevate their concerns to the district. The families would have to do so in this case because the principal failed. She failed to protect the board from this. She failed to protect the students and failed to communicate with compassion with parents. My feelings are not one-sided. It's not just the Jewish community that's been hurt. The investigation showed that no one in authority bothered to reach out to the quoted student, even after it was revealed that she was receiving death threats. That's how you treat a member of your school community? The leadership of the school has proven that when crisis comes, and it always does, that they don't personally care. They lack basic compassion, and this is the tone that is being set for the entire school to follow.
Thank you, Ms.
When
Braun.
school teachers and administrators don't care about the kids, it's a problem. I look forward to your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braun. And our next speaker is David Chapman.
Good evening. My name is Rabbi David Chapman. I live here in Northbrook. I'm a rabbi at Congregation Beth Shalom in Northbrook. I went to New Trier, but don't hold that against me.
So did I. I don't.
From where I sit as a rabbi and as a community leader, my colleagues across the country are sharing with me that spaces where you can be proudly and openly Jewish and proudly and openly a supporter of Israel are shrinking in this country and around the world. The map where we can live safely and freely is shrinking. That's been happening for many years, and it's been happening at a staggering pace since October 7th. As a Jew, as a Jewish leader, as a parent, this scares me. And what I want to impart onto this board is that for many, many years, this area and this district specifically has been seen as a safe haven, a place where diversity and inclusion is celebrated, where people from all backgrounds can live amongst each other. And that is one of the reasons that the Jewish community, among other communities, has thrived in this area. And I pray and I hope that this school board can guide this community and this district to maintain its well-deserved reputation as a place where inclusion and diversity is celebrated and welcomed. One of our teachers in our tradition, Rabbi Nachman, teaches Kol Halom Kolo Gesher Tzar Me'od. The whole world is a very narrow bridge. The whole world feels like it is on a very narrow bridge right now, and we look to leaders such as yourselves to guide us across that bridge to a place where we can all live safely and peacefully in harmony with one another once again. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. That concludes our public comment portion of our meeting. I now move to item 4 on our agenda, our board and superintendent reports. Dr. Johns.
Mr. Dowdy, in the interest of time, we're going to forego superintendent and building reports.
Okay, board members, anything you want to report tonight?
No.
Okay. Item 5 on our agenda is our consent agenda. Dr. Johns, are there any changes in the consent agenda?
No changes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none.
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hara,
Yes.
Ms. Segwin,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg.
Yes.
Mr. Dowdy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 6 on our agenda is to summarize our meeting. We did have about roughly 15 community visitors who did address us, which we always appreciate. And then we just approved our consent agenda. That is the relatively brief summary of our meeting as so far. Item 7 on our agenda regards future meetings. Our next meeting is on July 22nd here in this room at 7 o'clock. And if there are any topics that my colleagues would like to raise, please do bring them to my or Dr. Johns' attention. Item 8 on our agenda is closed session. Before we go into the motion part of that, as I noted earlier, the yearbook situation we know has taken a significant toll on our community. And as we noted, we had two goals with our investigation when we began it at the end of May, to determine what happened and how we can prevent recurrence. This evening, we will now be acting. We'll be addressing what happened, and we'll be directing preventive actions going forward. These efforts will help us heal as a community as we get ready for school to open in just a month and a half. We want to recognize the enormous input we've received from our community, our administration, our staff, our legal counsel, and my colleagues on the board. This input has been invaluable and deeply appreciated. Our community has also shown tremendous patience, and we're grateful for that. And part of that is their respect for the process. We do things deliberately and appropriately in this board, and we always have, and we try to follow a good due process. That has been critical, and we appreciate their patience and understanding with that. So now we'll be moving toward our next steps. We will be adjourning into closed session momentarily, and then when we are finished, we will come back, and as I mentioned earlier, have 3 agenda items beyond that. With that backdrop, I will entertain a motion to consider the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of the public body or against legal counsel for the public body to determine its validity, and collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees, pursuant to sections 2C1 and 2 of the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
So we're going to have our close. It goes on there. We will be holding our closed session outside this room. So if anyone wants to remain, you may do so here, and we will come back when we conclude our closed session. Thank you. We are now back in open session for item 9, which are actions out of closed session. Our initial item is regarding discipline of a tenured teacher. And I'm going to begin with asking Mr. Galecki. There is going to be start with our first vote right now.
I move that the Glenbrook District 225 Board of Education dismiss Brenda Field for employment for all the reasons discussed in closed session.
Is there a second on the motion?
I second.
We have heard the motion. It's been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion?
No additional comments. No additional comments.
Okay. Madam Secretary, just please read the roll.
Mr. Glowacki,
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hara,
No.
Ms. Segwin,
No.
Mr. Schein,
No.
Dr. Steinberg,
No.
Mr. Dowdy.
No. There
Motion
is
does
now
not
a second motion, Mr. Galecki.
I move that the Glenbrook District 225 Board of Education issue a notice of remedy to Brenda Field as specified during the closed session for all the reasons discussed.
Second. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none.
Ms. Mullenbeck,
Yes.
Mr. O'Hara,
Yes.
Ms. Segwin,
Yes.
Mr. Schein,
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg,
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki,
I abstain.
Mr. Dowdy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We have just adopted what is called a notice to remedy. Let me give a little bit of perspective on this. Yeah, give you a perspective here. Serving on a Board of Education is replete with awards and challenges, and occasionally we're asked to make decisions that would be preferably, we wish were easier, if not avoided, and tonight we were compelled to do that, an unavoidable decision. Since last May, our school district and communities have been burdened by a decision that should never have been allowed. The yearbook controversy at Glenbrook South has created harm to our students, staff, administration, families, and communities. The lack of judgment exercised in allowing the printing of the controversial passage in the yearbook resulted in substantial disruption to the operation of this district, caused high anxiety for students, staff, and community members regarding their safety, and resulted in significant upheaval at board meetings for over a month. The board was compelled to determine how this error occurred and take steps to avoid any repeat in the future. The report of this investigation of the events leading to the publication is complete and has been made public. The only reasonable outcome to discipline Brenda Field, a yearbook advisor, that we've reached tonight on a 601 decision is this discipline that includes the following. Ms. Field is relieved of all duties relating to the publication of the yearbook. She will not be paid the stipend for those duties nor teach any yearbook classes. She is suspended without pay for 30 workdays. Her assignment for the remainder of her employment will not involve student instruction and will be determined by the superintendent and principal. She will be required to operate in strict conformity with board policies, administrative rules, and directives for the remainder of her employment. This discipline takes the form of a formal notice to remedy issued by the board as a final warning. Any further errors in judgment or failure to conform her behavior to the above requirements will result in dismissal. The removal of Ms. Field gives us some comfort that this type of error will not occur in the future. In addition, the administration will take all steps directed by the board to avoid similar lapses in judgment and other co-curricular activities, as we will outline in our next agenda item in a moment. I do note that Ms. Field has issued an apology, which will be posted, I think, as of tomorrow morning on our website, so people can see that. But that is our determination as a notice of remedy at this point. I will now move in conjunction with this to item 9.2, which are board directives and other actions. When we had the outset of our situation here was that we wanted to address what happened, and that's the first part of what Mr. Petrarca did in his report. And then the second part was to make sure we could do all we could to prevent recurrence of any similar kind of situation. So and we told you in our statement on May 28th that we'd be conducting this investigation to get to the cause and prevent recurrence. And because we have gone through it now, we are going to direct the administration to take several steps with respect to this situation. First, the administration is directed to post the position of yearbook sponsor and instructor at Glenbrook South tomorrow morning. Then, by the board's meeting on August the 12th, the board directs the administration to present measures to do the following. First, provide professional development for the sponsors of publications that review A, current laws related to the student-free expression and student press rights. B, district policies and procedures related to student publications. C, Illinois educator ethics rules and appropriate journalistic educators ethics standards. Number 2, provide professional development to all employees responsible for making purchases and or requesting disbursement of public funds or student activity for funds regarding A, state statutes and district policies regarding bidding, purchasing, contracts, budgeting, ethics, and conflicts of interest. B, permissible approaches and technologies for communicating with students, parents, and vendors. C, establish reporting expectations for outside material relationships with vendors. 3, provide professional development for all management and supervisory personnel on proper management and supervisory practices. 4, provide professional development for all personnel on understanding and sensitivity regarding A, anti-Semitism, and B, other forms of hatred and bigotry, including bystander trading. 5, review contracting and purchasing practices in the district to ensure statutory compliance, policy alignment, and accountability practices. 6, review conflict of interest policies in the district to ensure statutory compliance, policy alignment, and accountability practices. 7, evaluate assessment and grading practices to ensure uniform compliance with existing policies. 8, assess evaluation practices for extracurricular staff. The board further directs beyond the report on August 12th that the administration report on adherence regarding the above measures on a regular and no less frequent than annual basis. This statement is not meant to be exhaustive. There may be other things that we determine we need to do. We have a lot of work to do in this administration and in this board and in this district. And this board takes it very seriously. And I know Dr. Johns and the rest of his administrative team also take it extremely seriously. So we will be seeing a product on August 12th regarding these items, and we will be learning as we go. What other items do you need for a district which is wonderful and excellent in many, many respects, but like everything else needs improvement. And that is what the important part of this statement is. We're trying to go forward, prevent recurrence, and prevent recurrence of other things we found along the way. Before I move on to 9.3, any discussion or additional thoughts, board, on this? No, this is just direction from the board. Item 9.3 on our agenda, which is different from what we've been just talking about, goes to memoranda of agreements with the Glenbrook Education Association, possible actions regarding that. Dr. Johnson, you want to say anything about those at this point?
Just a reminder to the board, after the collective bargaining work that was done with the Glenbrook Education Association, there are a number of items that needed continued work between the administration on behalf of the board and the leadership of the GEA. These are 4 items that were a part of that work. It was known work. It's been part of the work that Ms. Romano and Dr. Gravel have been working on with the GEA executive leadership team, and we're in the process of finalizing some of those items, 4 of which are here tonight.
Okay. Board members, any questions or discussion on these items? Okay. Do we do them one at a time, or we need a motion, I think?
You can do them collectively.
Motion.
So I move that the board approve the 4 memos as outlined in under 8.2.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Ms. Smith?
Ms. Segwin?
Yes.
Mr. Schein?
Yes.
Dr. Steinberg?
Yes.
Mr. Glowacki?
Yes.
Ms. Mullenbeck?
Yes.
Mr. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Doughty?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 10 is adjournment. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you everyone for staying this evening and all your participation and help over these last couple of months.